and welcome to another episode of Kev's Defender Project. In this episode we're going to be tackling the lights. Now I'm swapping them all out for LEDs. I did the headlights a couple of months ago and I was very happy with them. The old ones are pretty much like candles, so these new ones are a vast improvement. I got them for a company called Bolt-On Bits, which is very close to where I live, and so I went up to have a chat with them. They gave me a couple of options of what I could do, and so I just swapped out the headlights. Because I was so happy with it, I went back and I asked them about some advice for the rest of the lights. They gave me a couple of options and I've picked my set that I want. It comes with a new front end, so we're going to be replacing that as well. So without further ado, let's crack on. So the original lights, the brake/side light and the indicators are held on by, well, the cap is held on by two screws, which I've kind of undone. Now underneath here you can see there are 1, 2, 3 incredibly corroded screws. If your Land Rover is anywhere near the age of mine, then yours is probably going to be corroded anyway as well, so we're going to have to drill those out. Now before we do that, the new LED unit is a sealed unit, and it also has the same 2 screw holes as the cap had, but it doesn't have the 3 inside ones, so we're going to need to screw or drill through these to make the holes for the new unit to fit on. So I've got a drill with a 3mm drill bit. Just going to locate those holes here. And now we've done that, we know that the new unit's going to go on in exactly the same place. So now we can get on with drilling these 3 very corroded screws out. So you can see that now we've pulled the light unit out of the way. These screws, I just about managed to drill the heads off. They're so corroded in, the screw didn't want to come out. So we're going to need to work on that. We're going to need to pull those out, clean up this rust, probably paint it a little bit more. Then we can look at refitting the new unit with some new connectors. So let's go do the other 3. We've got 1 more brake light and 2 more indicators to do. And they're probably going to look like this as well, so it's going to be quite a bit of work. So when it comes to the rear fog light and the reversing light on the other side, they're not a straight replacement. The old ones are square and the new ones are round, and also the holes are different. So this one is, the holes are about 7 centimetres apart, and on the new one they're about 8. So we're going to need to drill some new holes. So when we take this off, we're going to find that behind the plastic coloured cover there's actually 2 bolts holding this in. I'm going to need to go underneath the car and around the back to undo the nuts holding them on, and I'll do that in a minute. But the key thing here is the fact that we want to keep it straight when we're drilling the new holes. So before I take this unit off, I'm just going to draw a couple of straight lines on the bodywork where the edge is, and then I'm going to put a little marker on either side where the holes are. So basically once this is off, we can draw a straight line, put some masking tape on to hold the drill bit in place, drill a couple of new holes, fit the new unit. Simple. So now we've undone the nuts on the inside, we can take this unit off, and there's a couple of crimp connectors that we can cut off later. Now it looks like someone's made a right mess of this when they took the original unit off. These holes are kind of pretty large and quite dented in. Now because the new unit has got a slightly wider hole pattern, we may be able to get away with this, so let's just draw it on and hope for the best. So we draw a line across. We might actually just take it a little bit higher, that makes it a little bit easier to see. And then let's take between these 2 holes, take that as the middle, 2 lines, 40 to that side and 40 to this side. So we've now got our 2 hole places. Now the screws that came with it are, we'll take a 3mm hole and then the screw will bite on that, so I'll drill those later, but what I'm going to do now is go take the other one off and then fit the 2 new ones.
Okay, so now we've got all the old lights off the rear. Before we put the new ones on, I thought it might be quite interesting to do a compare and contrast between them so we can see what the difference is in brightness. So what I've done is I've rigged them all up here on this board. I've got a car battery and a bunch of switches hooked up. I've already had a look myself and you can tell that the LED ones are vastly brighter. Now the problem is that my camera seems to kind of saturate out a little bit because everything's so bright. So what I'm going to try and do is turn the contrast down on the camera a little bit and then see if we can actually show the difference and show why this is definitely an upgrade that's worth doing.
So this is the side lights and brake, just brakes. This is the indicators and the side repeaters. This is the reversing light. Notice how the camera's adjusting to how bright it is by darkening everything. And finally, this is the fog light.
So I've just got one more point I wanted to touch on before I tear the board down to go and fit the lights. Now this is a standard flasher relay for the Land Rover. Now what this is designed to do obviously is flash the lights. So if I fit it into the circuit and turn the lights on, you can see that they're flashing very quickly. Now this is because the relay is designed to work at a specific resistance, so that once a bulb goes out, it's going to flash quicker to let you know that one of the bulbs needs replacing. Now because we're replacing all the lights with LEDs, they have a much lower resistance, which is why it's flashing as if there's a bulb gone. So what we need to do is replace it with one of these, which is the RDX flasher relay. So this actually is designed to go with LEDs. So if we swap it out, put that right there, fit this one, I think we get the right way around. Now when we flash the lights, you can see you've got a sensible flashing rate with the lower resistance LEDs. So that's another thing we're going to need to replace. It is really just unplug the old one and plug the new one in. So now I'm going to go and tear this board down and we can go and get the lights fitted.
Okay, so the lights that I got from Bolt On Bits came with the plugs attached, which saves me a job, but obviously we're going to need to put the connectors onto the wiring that's actually on the vehicle itself. So we've got here the pieces for the connector that goes on the wiring loom. So we've got the case, a small thing to hold the pins in place, the pin, and a small waterproofing grommet thing. Now when it's all put together, it looks like that. So what we need is a set of crimps and all these pieces. So what I've done first is I've stripped the wire off about 1/2 centimetre, and that will then sit in the pin like that, so it's not protruding out too much. What we need to do is put this rubber grommet onto the wire. Now it needs to sit right at the end of the sleeving on the wire, so that when we crimp it up, the connector or the jaws at the back are actually going to go round the grommet itself. Now what we're going to need to do, as I said, is get these crimps. I don't know if you can see it on the camera. There's a slight, one end slightly higher than the other, and on the pin, one end is slightly lower than the other. So when you put, it'll only go in one way round, and that's what it goes in like. We just cinch the crimp tool up so that it's clicked into place. It's holding the pin there on its own now. We can insert the wire into the crimp tool and then give it a good squeeze, and we've now got one more wire pinned in place. Once we've done that, we can put both of the wires through the plug. You just click into place like that. And then we just put this yellow plastic thing in, and then the yellow cap just goes in like that, and you've got a small pokey thing to click it into place. And there, we're done. Now the observant amongst you might notice that this doesn't actually connect to the vehicle. So what I've done is I had an extra spare one of these left over, so I figured it would be easier to show you on the bench rather than trying to do the filming around the car with the with the short pigtails on the wiring loom. So now I just need to go and do a bunch of these on the vehicle so that we can plug the lights in. Now these front lights are fairly straightforward to remove. There are 2 screws here, and then 2 screws on the light caps, and then 3 on the bulb holders. Undo all those and the whole thing will come off. Once you've got that panel out of the way, there's 3 screws holding on the ring that holds the headlight in place, and then behind that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 screws that will be holding the headlight holder onto the body. Like we did with the rear lights, here's a side-by-side comparison of the front lights. First of all, we have the side lights. Then we have dip beam, main beam, indicators, and because the side light is contained within the main light unit on the new setup, we've actually got a spare slot for a spotlight. So I've now taken the old front off, so it's time to put the new one on. As you can see, I've already put the bracket on for the 2 screws for the original holes from the old front. Now, some people I've seen put this on have 2 holes holding the side lights on, whereas mine has 3. So I'm going to have to drill 2 more holes here just to bolt this on. Once that's done, I can grab the headlight and fix it on with these 4 holes here. Now, if you see the 3 screws that are holding the rim that holds the actual light unit in, I kept losing those and mine were rusty anyway. I discovered that if you go to somewhere like Screwfix, you can pick up these easy drive 6x1/2 inch. So the originals are 6x1/4. These are 6x1/2 and they fit fine. So you put those on. Once the light's been bolted in, we can then put the plastic bit on. Now there's a little clip, like a little lip here that goes over this lip here, at which point that has to hold on to that. Then we've got a big screw that goes through there. There's another screw hole under here. I can do the other side, finish wiring up, and then we can put the grille on. So come back in a sec and I'll have done those. Okay, so now the light clusters are on. All the lights are wired up. Got 2 jobs left. First is to wire in the spotlights. So when I got the kit from Bolt On Bits, as well as all the connectors and all the hardware, screws and such that you need to fit everything, they also provided a wiring harness for the spotlights. So it's got everything you need. It's got the connectors for the battery, it's got a fuse in line, it's got a relay so that we don't have to put all the power through the switch. So you just need to hook this up to the 2 lights, run the cable into the cab, wire up a switch, and we're good to go. And the second job is to get is to fit the grille. Now, to fit the grille, there's 2 main things we need. First is these 4 small screws, well 3 in my case because one's missing. These 3 small screws come out with the washers, and then at the bottom, again, Bolt On Bits provided the big screws and the captive nuts that you can see, and so this screw is going to basically go through the grille, through the light cluster, and then into the captive nut and screw everything together. So once that's done, we're pretty much finished. So let's crack on. Now these side repeaters are probably my favourite lights to replace just because they're so easy to do. Basically there's 2 little spikes on the back, and if you pull it out and pull the cover off, you've just got a simple bulb. So once this bulb comes out, then the replacement lights actually have the exact same size and shape as the original bulb. So you just plug that back in, push the wires back in there, and then this new LED repeater, once all the wires go back in through the hole, the spikes just go back into those 2 little holes, and we're done. And there you have it. I think it looks great. They're definitely a lot brighter, so they're going to be a much safer driving around. And thanks again to the guys at Bolt on Bits for the advice. Now, they have an eBay site if you're not close enough to be able to go visit them, so take a look at that. I'll put a link to their website and their eBay site in the closing credits. And yeah, join me again next time when I'll be doing something else fun to my Land Rover.